We are back with an update for the AFC North after week 13 of the NFL season, heading into week 14. So we'll get right into it with the division leading Baltimore Ravens. They win 10-9 at home against the Broncos. This was another AFC North game to not have an offensive touchdown until the fourth quarter. In fact, the Ravens, Steelers, and Browns combined for only 2 offensive touchdowns themselves, and their 3 games only featuring 4 total offensive touchdowns. So for those 3 teams, not a whole lot of offense. Basically, it was just the Bengals, and besides that, do you like field goals? At least on the offensive side of things. However, the story of the game is not necessarily about the Ravens continuing their winning ways and still being at the top of the division. It's mostly about Lamar Jackson getting injured after taking a sack late in the first quarter. He is currently considered week to week, with John Harbaugh saying that he's less likely to play in their next game on the road against the Steelers. I don't think he's been officially ruled out as of yet, but if the coach is coming out and saying that it's pretty much probably not going to happen, then I think even if Lamar Jackson plays, it's going to be, he's not going to be anywhere near 100% there. I don't think Tyler Huntley is a bad backup quarterback. Whenever I've seen him in the game, he seems to be doing the job very serviceably, and if not even more so. But the offense for the Ravens has definitely looked worse when Lamar Jackson isn't on the field than when he is throughout the years. And this offense, even with Lamar Jackson at the helm, has had some start and stop issues, at least that I've noticed. It is a bit unclear when he'll be ready to play in 100%. Zach Wilson missing 4 weeks last year with his injury, but I did see something. I saw a graphic on social media that the normal time for this is anywhere between 1 to 3 weeks. And that, 1 to 3 week time frame, whether it's on the shorter or longer end of that, is going to be important, as 4 of their final 5 games left of the season are going to be divisional opponents. So that's going to be teams that have either already seen you once before and they might game plan for something different, or I think in the case of the Steelers, I think they play them twice. So that's going to be a little wrench there, that the Ravens would definitely want Lamar Jackson back sooner rather than later if they're going to be playing divisional opponents for the rest of the way, as those games are obviously going to be more important. If you take losses in those, then you start getting the tie breaks and all that thing, and you would just rather have Lamar Jackson there to try to ensure more victories than not. But we'll see how this injury plays out. We'll see if maybe they try to return him even if he's not completely healed up, because they're trying to get results, and it's going to be something to keep an eye on moving forward. Not a whole lot of clear answers as of yet. We might get more info as the week rolls on, or maybe after week 14 we'll have a clearer vision, or maybe the Ravens will just continue to shroud this in kind of uncertainty as they try to keep this status hidden from other teams. But it's something interesting. We'll see how this kind of builds as we move forward. Moving on to the second place Bengals, also at 8-4. They win 27-24 at home against the Kansas City Chiefs. They continue their ownership of Kansas City in this, you kind of call it a rivalry, but is it really that much of a rivalry if one team is 3-0? I think it is, because all the games have been very competitive and spirited, but it just so happens that the Bengals have come out on top in their most recent meetings. Jamar Chase was back in the lineup for this game, and his impact was immediately felt within the matchup. His spot on the roster and on his presence in the lineup makes the downfield passing threat that much more effective, which opens up everything else in theory, and with the Bengals usually in practice as well. There are sometimes when you get a high, what you think of a high-end talent wide receiver who's going to open up the downfield passing, and sometimes it doesn't just because it works on paper doesn't mean that it necessarily translates on the field. But in the case with the Bengals and Jamar Chase, yeah, you can definitely notice it. You can definitely see it, the way that offense runs when Jamar Chase is there. It's just that much more crisp. And the offense wasn't bad with him out, but now that he's back in, it just runs that much more efficiently. The offensive line, I think, for the Bengals did hold up in this game. That's been kind of an issue with the Bengals for years now, and including some of this season. But I thought for this game against Kansas City, the offensive line mostly did its job. Joe Burrow looking a bit more comfortable back there. Maybe something you don't want to see is Kansas City coming back from a 14-3 deficit. But again, the Kansas City Chiefs do have a very dynamic offense. Sometimes they put they put their foot on the gas pedal, and sometimes they have a tendency to run up some points on you in a very quick fashion. It doesn't help when Tyler Boyd drops a touchdown pass in the third quarter. Bengals having to settle for a field goal there. In the fourth quarter, the Bengals defense forcing a huge turnover on Travis Kelce in the fourth quarter when the Bengals were trailing by 4. That was definitely something where, maybe if that doesn't happen, the Chiefs go down. Maybe they score another touchdown or a field goal, but we'll never see the result of that because the Bengals defense made a tremendous play and gave the Bengals some life there. And the Bengals would get a touchdown on that ensuing drive to take the lead. Kansas City was driving, but Patrick Mahomes getting sacked on third down. A nice clutch play by the Bengals defense there. And Harrison Butker missing a 55-yard field goal wide right. I did notice Andy Reid getting some criticism, and I think a little bit rightfully so. It was a 4th and 5, so it wasn't like it's an impossible conversion. I think they went for a 4th and 4 earlier on in the game, and they had shown willingness to go for it on 4th down. I'm not sure why this instance was so much more different than the other ones. And it's not like 55 yards is a gimme by any stretch of the imagination, even for a kicker like Harrison Butker, who has made some very clutch kicks from 50-plus yards before. Just seems a little weird to take the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands on a 4th and 5 to take that chance on a definitely less than certain field goal. Jamar Chase would lunge to get a crucial first down to keep the clock moving, and then Joe Burrow would find T. Higgins on a 3rd and 11 to basically let the Bengals run the clock out and end the game. So the Bengals prove that they are still the Chiefs' boogeyman, and it'll be interesting to see if the Bengals, can beat their own boogeyman at home next week against the Browns. This has been another weird kind of thing. I can see why the Bengals would be beating the Chiefs because that's 2 good teams, and sometimes 2 good teams have the one good team will have the upper hand on the other good team for whatever reason. The Browns this year and even last year too there's not like they've been world beaters or anything. You thought maybe the first game of this season might change that trend a little bit, but the Browns were able to blow out the Bengals in that game. So next week is going to be definitely really interesting to see if that dynamic can shift at all. And speaking of the Browns, they improved their record to 5-7. Again, the Browns and Steelers are still very much distantly behind the Bengals and Ravens in this division. They take a win 27-14 on the road against the Texans. I did already cover this game a few days back, but the TLDR is that both offenses were horrible. Anthony Schwartz had a fumble. What else is new? The big story was Deshaun Watson's return, obviously, and he was just straight garbage. He was terrible. He was constantly throwing low into the turf, throwing an interception into the end zone, didn't throw any touchdowns. The only noticeable good thing about Deshaun Watson was that he had a few decent scrambles here and there. The way that the Browns won was they got a punt return for a touchdown, and they scored 2 defensive touchdowns. That's not necessarily, I don't think that's a win that's repeatable, let alone sustainable. This is just not how you normally win games in the NFL. The Texans are just laughably bad. The Texans offense was terrible too, and they just didn't have some of the, like the Browns do have talented players on the roster, and the Texans just not as much high-end talent there for the Texans. You can see their record. It's awful. Like I said, the Browns' next game is on the road against the Bengals. And unless Deshaun Watson has a complete 180 from that performance, even if it's just a gradual improvement, it probably won't be enough by the time next week rolls around. Against the Bengals, Jacoby Brissett in that first matchup played very well. If Deshaun Watson is still feeling the rust or doesn't click with the offense for whatever reason, then this game could very much have a very different outcome than the last game, but we'll see, I guess. And the Steelers also improving their record to 5-7, winning on the road 19-16 against the Falcons. Steelers bonking in a field goal in the first quarter to open the scoring. Then the Steelers defense does its job stifling the Falcons for a little bit. And then the lengthy Steeler drive that goes into the second quarter ends in a field goal after a Deontay Johnson drop kills that drive. Falcons responding with a field goal of their own. And then on the ensuing drive, Pat Freiermuth just goes rampant on the Falcons defense. Kenny Pickett throwing a dot to Connor Hayward for a touchdown to take a 13-3 lead. That is the Steelers' offensive touchdown for the week, or whatever. The teams then trading more field goals. Can we interest you in special teams play before the end of the half? And the score is 16-6 heading into the third quarter. Steelers increasing their lead in that quarter with, you guessed it, another field goal. Falcons getting right back into it at the end of the third quarter with a touchdown drive of their own. And into the fourth quarter, the score is 19-13. Steelers offense stalls and doesn't do a whole lot. Falcons look to be on a promising drive, but a holding penalty on 1st and goal, setting them back all the way to the 20 with 1st and goal, and they settle for a field goal on that drive. Pittsburgh does a really good job eating clock. They do end up giving the Falcons the ball back with 42 seconds left. Falcons out without any timeouts, and then after a tremendous punt by Presley Harvin, pitting the Falcons at their own 2, the drive was already looking like a long shot, and then on the first play of that drive, Minkah Fitzpatrick gets an interception before the drive can even think about becoming a potential game-tying or game-winning drive. Game over there. Like I mentioned earlier, the next game for the Steelers is at home against the Ravens, and this is starting to look like a perfect storm for maybe the Steelers to steal this one, as it doesn't look likely that Lamar Jackson is going to be playing. The Steelers are on a bit of a momentum streak right now. They're having new life in their season. I don't think the Browns and the Steelers are necessarily playing any world beaters right now, but they are getting wins, and sometimes that's all you need to get the ball rolling, especially in the Steelers' case, where now they have a divisional matchup at home against a maybe less than 100% Ravens team, and they're going to be back at home in whatever Heinz Field is called now. I still call it Heinz Field or whatever. I don't remember what they changed the name to. I don't really care to it either. It's just Heinz. It's Pittsburgh at home. It's Heinz. I don't care what company paid for the actual advertising rights. It's just back in Heinz. So it's going to be an interesting week for the AFC North coming up. All of the teams in divisional matchups facing each other, and we'll see how that shakes up the division. If it does at all, maybe the Bengals and Ravens win both of those games, and we can just kind of keep continuing to talk about their race for the top to the AFC North, or maybe the Browns and the Steelers can make things a little more interesting. So thank you for watching. Leave a like and a subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you have something to say down in the comments below. I will see you at the next one.